Kia ora, everyone. What's happening? Friday, Talkback Fridays for 20th of May. Tonight is Michelle Henderson hosting you for this special event. This event tonight is about women in comedy. We are armed and dangerous. Look out. So we've got a few hot chicks in the house tonight talking comedy, talking MCing, talking career, talking pathways, entertainment. Yeah, a whole bunch of cool stuff that makes up life and makes life magic. So without further ado, let's bring in Mrs. Michelle Henderson.
Hey.
Hi, dear. How are you?
Good, I'm good. The weather outside's pretty terrible though, so
yeah, it's snowing where I am. What sort of semi-snowing where I am? So a little bit of dusting on the hills today.
Oh, you're in Queenstown, aren't you?
Yes, near Queenstown. Yeah, so it's kind of it sort of looks like icing sugar.
Beautiful.
Yeah, very pretty. Pretty dusty, and that's actually the name of a pair of sunglasses by Fortune Eyewear, who were once a sponsor on the show, Fortune Eyewear. So I'm gonna let you introduce your fantastic woman backstage, and we're just gonna let you guys rock out. So yeah, you go for it after this.
Oh, good. Hey, gal.
Hey.
So exciting! I can't believe I'm interviewing one of my best friends. So that's pretty cool.
I didn't know we were going to go public with that.
Cut it out. So, do you basically want to just explain to the audience like who you are, what made you venture into all forms of entertainment, and give us a brief overview of who you are?
I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. So my name is Brooke West. I do a little bit of everything in the entertainment industry because I just couldn't choose, to be honest. It's been a little bit of a slower process, I would say. Like, my progress has kind of come in bursts. Sometimes motivation issues on my own part, and other times it was listening to the wrong people, trying to pigeonhole you like people tend to do when you're in the entertainment industry. And if you're one thing, you can only be one thing. And I wanted to do everything. And I was getting told, particularly by men, I remember one guy said to me, he's like, you're like a three-headed tiger. What is it? That dog thing on Harry Potter, like a
oh yeah,
yeah. And he was just like, you want to do all of these different things, and you can't, you could, like pick one and basically just sell out and do like a paywall on a website. And that was disheartening, but it also kind of fueled me even more, because it was like, I know I can do more than one thing. A lot of people can, and it was just sticking to my guns and kind of forging my own path like that. And then I became friends with people like you, who just had the audacity that I didn't have and the confidence that I didn't have to sort of umbrella all of that, being a dancer or a comic or trying music videos or having, a voice or whatever. And so it was good to be able to be around other women that were just like, you know what? Men have tried to run the world forever, and it's not really working out. So, maybe we should stop listening to them and try some shit our way.
Get it, gal.
So far, so good. So we'll see.
Yeah. Do you want to explain kind of the different avenues of things that you've done? So obviously, what's that noise I can hear? Like feedback or something?
Yeah. So the different avenues of what?
What's the different kind of avenues?
Sorry, guys, just one sec. There's a little bit of crackle in the background. I don't know what may be causing this, but we can try and figure it out. You hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear it? It sounds like crackling chip packet or yeah, it could be the microphone on the phone scratching the surface.
Hang on, we'll just wait for B.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, Selena, tell me what are you doing this one for?
A little bit of work little bit of a break from Auckland, and I lived down there about 23 years ago. So I'm sort of reconnecting with the area, and I love traveling, and traveling is a big part of who I am, and I love like kind of going down this anthropological route of studying people, and it's sometimes very stressful, but I believe in people, and life is about people, even if they hurt you, and sometimes everyone has something to teach each other. So hey, I think her sound is sorted.
Woohoo! All right, let's try that again, B.
Everyone has something to teach.
I'm trying to figure. I look like such like a non-technical person right now. What's one of the settings? There's like an echo cancellation like setting. Okay, have we fixed it?
I think we fixed it. All right.
Okay. I knew I was going to do something dumbass on the radio, so like, cool. We got that out of the way early.
We sorted it out.
Oh, just one thing. I see that echo there. So if someone is playing the stream, just mute it. If you're playing it on a Facebook, YouTube.
No, I don't have anything playing. There was like an audio setting on this app kind of thing that's on here.
This is real. This is real life. Everyone. See, but I can hear.
And now I can't see you.
Really.
What is my line?
That's right. We'll try again.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I was asking you. You know, obviously you've done dancing. You've done. Currently doing comedy. Explain to me.
Yeah, I just couldn't choose. I started dancing, to be honest, as I kind of got dragged into it. And for me, I don't regret it at all. Like, dancing taught me so much about myself. It taught me so much about other people. It gave me a lot of confidence, and it was a way to get out of like a bad home life situation because I could make my own money. I was suddenly independent, and there wasn't anybody that could tell me like, this is what you have to do, or this is who you have to be. And it really gave me, to be honest, the freedom to really look inward. This sounds really backwards, like stripping is what healed me. But it really did give me that time of, I only had to work, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and I could pay all of my bills. And the rest of that time I could be at home, or I could go out with my friends, and not just going out in the weekends at nighttime, like I could go away on trips. And I really had a lot of downtime to just kind of look inward and deal with my own stuff. And I had this really kind of weird moment when I was 20, and I decided, like, this sounds so cheesy, but it's 100% true. So I had heard that your frontal temporal lobe, right, like up here, that's the decision-making part of the brain. And that's not fully formed until you turn 21 years old. So that's why teenagers are such fuckwits, because they literally can't make good decisions. Their brain isn't programmed to do it. And that's why people give you a key on your 21st to enter into adulthood, because, like, you're actually capable now. So I decided at 20, like, you've been through all of this crap, and at a certain point, it's up to you where your future goes. Like, that was where you were forged in the fucking fires. But at a certain point, you've got to keep it pushing. So I was like, I'm not going to go into 21 carrying all that baggage. I'm gonna really look inward and sort that out. And it took a lot more than 1 year. It took more like 7. But dancing gave me the freedom to be able to just really have that kind of looking into myself time. And that worked in well with my comedy, because, like, I've been heckled so many times in a strip club with my tits out. And so, like, for me, there is nothing anybody on this earth could say to me on a comedy stage that would come even close to phasing me. Like, dude, I used to do this, like, I'm standing out there naked and people are shouting out the dumbest stuff. And strangely enough, that was where I got a lot of my stage confidence. Like, a stage is a stage is a stage. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing on there. if that's going to get you comfortable, you know, like stage skills aren't necessarily transferable, but that feeling of being on a stage and being comfortable with it. And I think what really makes a good performer is, it doesn't matter whether you're playing a role or dancing or doing comedy or whatever it is, like when you're up there, you really have to understand who it is that you are and what it is that you stand for and what it is that your message is, like what is your art, whatever that may be, trying to say. And I don't think you can really do that until you really understand who you are. So dancing kind of gave me that jumping point to have that confidence back, because I actually started comedy first. And a lot of people don't know that. So I started comedy and I was so shy. Like I wasn't like Brooke West back then, and no one believes me because like I put in the work. But this the New Zealand International Comedy Festival happens every year, except for COVID, which really fucked us up. But there's this amazing program that they do through the Classic, which is just my home. Shout out to the Classic. They go around all of the local high schools and they pick like 1 or 2 kids from every high school in that kind of like town, south, like west, whatever area. And they take us to the Classic Comedy Bar and they get like a professional comedian that brings in these kids, and they put us through like a 2-week school holiday program and taught us how to be comedians and like how to write a joke and how to write, you know, for your voice and to find yourself within that, which was amazing. And I almost didn't do it. Like I wanted to talk to the guy that did it. It was Ben Hurley. So he's on TV all the time. Everybody knows him. He's great. Love you, Ben. He was talking to one of my friends at the front of the stage because nobody at my school signed up for it. And I didn't know that there was something to sign up because I was just, whatever, a teenager. So I went and talked to her thinking like he'll see me talking to her and like, you know, we'll just see what happens. And he looked at me and he was like, you know what, you should really come to this because, you know, you're quite funny, and it's not even necessarily about funny at that time. He was like, you're really engaging, and I'm very talky with my hands and stuff. And he goes, when you talk, I want to listen, and so you should come. And I was so shy that I panicked, and I was just like, okay. And then I gave him my details, and I walked away, and I was like, there's no fucking way in hell, like I'm going, like there's no way I could do it. And so then I made up my mind, like, I can't do it, I'm too scared, like, I totally bitched out. And so I was like, he said to me, I'll call you closer to the time and we'll confirm all the details. And I was like, okay, giving myself a pep talk. When he comes and does this thing, when he calls me, I'm going to tell him, like, I can't do it, like, there's just no way. So he calls me like a week out from doing it, and I was like, this is my moment, I'm just going to tell him. Just going to be, you know, assertive, you can't do it, you don't want to come. And he was like, cool, so like I'll see you in a week. And I panicked again, and I was like, yeah, no, like I'll see you then. And then I hung up the phone and I was like, damn it, you couldn't tell him that you couldn't go. And like, I'm a polite person, I don't look like it, but I am. And I was like, well, if I said I'm going to go, then I have to go. And I was dreading it the entire time that I was on the way there to get dropped off. And from the first day that I was there, it was just like coming home. Like I knew that was what I was supposed to do. I was that kid from 8 years old that like, I knew I was born to just be on a stage, like it didn't matter what stage. And as I got older, the little justice warrior in me kind of bubbled up, and I realized that even on a smaller scale, you know, like girls like you and me, people don't often care what we have to say, especially when we were growing up, you know, like people are a bit more woke now and they're a little bit more not dickheads, but like for the most part, every job I ever wanted is like a teenager, you know, like those kind of jobs I got. And people would say to me with zero experience, you know, it doesn't matter, like you just stand in the corner and look pretty. And so for me, comedy was like, all of a sudden it was like a whole new world. First world problems, but it was a problem. And all of a sudden people didn't care necessarily what I looked like anymore. It was about what I had to say. And people wanted to know like who I was and like what my viewpoint was. And I didn't always get it right. Sometimes I came across as like a little bit more defensive, as some of my mentors would say. And then some of the best comedy advice I got was one of the comedians, who was it? Would have been Jamie Bowen. And he was like, just tell us what it's like to be you. I'm interested in your point of view, and it doesn't have to be like this hard-hitting, edgy stuff. He's like, not that that's not great, but like, tell me what it's like to be a hot girl walking down the street. tell me what it's like to live a day in the life of you, because that's a perspective that I'm never going to have, and that's something that I'd be interested in. Other people would be too. And I was just like,
yeah. And I think that's so amazing is that you're a strong molding who knows you. You've turned pain into power, and you take the opportunity to come in, even if it's and risky.
Well, they do say comedy is tragedy plus timing. That's it. I got a lot of fucking tragedies, sis. But it's also like, if you can't laugh about it, like, what the fuck have you got,
Yeah.
Exactly. Can we swear? Because I did. It's happening.
Oh, good. You down. What made you want to get into stand-up? And
honestly, I used to watch stand-up all the time as like a teenager. So they do these like, like on TV2, how they do like Christmas in the Park. They also do leading up to the comedy festival, which at the time I didn't know was a thing, but they do these like variety shows where they put a bunch of different comedians on and they come and do like a 3 or 4 minute set. And then they broadcast that on TV. I think it's called like Aotearoa, but I don't know what it used to be called. So I used to watch that on TV, and honestly, even when I was watching it, it never ever occurred to me at that time, this is something that I want to do, like this is something that I could do, or this is an option. This was before social media. It wasn't the same as like, we can just do whatever we want now and Justin Bieber it and make our own path. It was like, you had a 1 in a billion shot. And so then when this thing came around for the high schools, I suddenly was thinking about it and was like, well, let me explore it. And within that 2-week program, Ed, like I just fell in love. Like it felt right. And throughout, like I left for a long time. I walked away from comedy for about 6 or 7 years, like for a bunch of different reasons. Like the industry then wasn't as great as it is now, especially for female comics. It sure as fuck wasn't ready for a comic like me that looks like me. I had a pretty hard time with like other women, like not Kiwi comics per se, but like the traveling women at the time that had that sometimes you get comics from like the UK and stuff, and they'll come and sort of be here for like a few months or whatever. And I remember this one chick told me at an after party that they had. I got to go to an after party at 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so they do like a closing down party for the festival. I'll tell you, this is the moment that I was like, you know what? This is my one arrogant comic moment. I was like, I can totally do this. So it was hosted by Rove, who at the time was like huge. He was on our TVs like every single Saturday. He had the Rove show. Like that was like the pinnacle for like Kiwi comics to kind of like do that sort of thing. And he was at the after party because he was the host, and I walked up to him and I tried to tell him my feminist joke at the time, and I was like 18 years old, and he laughed his ass off and said that's hilarious. And Ben looked at him and they gave each other the nod of like that was actually funny. And I was like, you know what, guys, just give me my prizes. Like I've got this shit in the bag. It didn't last. Like that feeling did not last. But yeah, that was the first moment that I just thought, you know what, maybe I can do this. Yeah. But having the right people. Yeah.
Sorry. In your first few shots, were you scared to have to be funny? Like that is literally that's scary.
Absolutely. It's very different being in a party setting, or like, when you're with your friends, like people would always say to me, oh my God, like you're so funny. And it's just like, whatever. But to actually be funny because you have to be is a completely different thing. Like guys will come up to you all the time, especially in strip clubs, and be like, yeah, I'm really funny too. And they'll tell you like just the lamest shit. But to actually have to be funny is a lot of pressure. And it also depends on the crowds. Like I've learned the hard way, like which crowds kind of work for me and which ones don't. And I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about comedy is it's like you get so many corny life lessons along the way where like if it doesn't try one time, try it again. Like try it in a different venue, try it with different types of crowds and see what happens. And it's interesting always to me to see which material lands with which audience. And sometimes you'll have a joke that has maybe 3 or 4 punchlines throughout that one joke. and seeing like which audience laughs at which part of it. Because sometimes you'll see people laugh at like the second or the third part, not the fourth or fifth. And that's kind of a collective in the room. And then the next time you do it with a different room, they don't laugh at the second or the third, but they go crazy over the fourth and the fifth part of the punchline. So I've always found that really interesting as kind of like a people watcher to see what part of the humor they kind of laugh at. And for me, it's become like a weird little fetish of mine where I just love to watch people laugh at comedy. Like if I fell in love with a Netflix special, I'll show all of my friends, you included, so you can vouch for that. And I just like, I don't watch the show, I watch them watch the show. Because I've watched the show 5 times and I know all of the jokes when they're coming, and I just sit there like at my friends and say, oh, what part are you gonna laugh at? And I feel like now it's like with my people reading skills from being a dancer and also in comedy, I can tell so much about a person, like just by what kind of comedy they like or who they like or what parts of the joke they laugh at. So when I meet new people, I'll throw out a different couple of kind of jokes in a social setting, and whichever one they laugh at, I'm like, I've got you now, like I've got your whole thing. I know exactly how to go with this. So they all kind of like mesh together, which is great for me because I'd be fucked if this didn't pan out.
How do you manage no, you're a mum. How to keep your voice? You're also a mum. How do you manage your life? How do you manage your life? How much?
Poorly. Poorly. That's why I call you on the daily, just stressing out. No, I'm quite ADD, which people can probably tell. So one of my managers actually said that to me. She's like, I love listening to your point of view because you're constantly thinking of like 6 different viewpoints at the exact same time. And she's like, that's so amazing. And I was like, sis, it's so exhausting. But it's the only way that I know how to be, you know, and like you and I relate to that a lot. And that's a lot of our friendship is based on our mutual just being this hot mess of a human being. Like, deal. But we somehow pull it off. And for me, like I'm just one of those people that loves life. I love life, and it fascinates me to watch people and watch different things, and I really love that bittersweet moment of like life doesn't always go the ways that we want it to, but how beautiful is it that just at the drop of the hat our path is never truly chosen for us, you know, like we can just pick up and leave the country tomorrow and start a new life or start a new path, start a new career. And I think it's just so exciting, and I just want to try all of it. I just want to try all of it. And so, you know, you get fulfilled in all these different ways. And if I was just a mum, like not saying just a mum, being a mum is like excruciating, it's so hard, but it's so beautiful and rewarding. But if I was only a mum, I wouldn't be as satisfied, and I wouldn't be able to be the kind of mum that I am or that I would like to be, because we're always learning, if I wasn't still fulfilling myself. Because I think that's a really unfair thing that we put on mums, is that, you know, once you're a mother, like that's it, you just shut up shop and you sit in the house and you cook and clean. And I'm like, I don't know where the fuck you were raised. But that's not how we're doing it here. And, you know, I have a son, so it's important to me that he sees an ambitious woman, you know, like a woman that's like, doesn't always get it right, doesn't have to be successful at absolutely everything, but just gave everything a go. And it's like, you're welcome, future girls, by the way, like we're out here raising kings. And it's like, I want him to grow up and see women and just be like, wow, you're so powerful, and you're so strong and yet vulnerable, and you can kind of have it all if you make the right kind of compromises if and where you can, you know, like you can't pour from an empty cup. And for me, I'm a worker. I couldn't be a stay-at-home mum. It's too hard. I like shout out to stay-at-home mums, because that shit, like by 4 months after my son was born, I was climbing the fucking wall still. I had to get out of this house. And so I wanted to study and I wanted to learn, and I still wanted to better myself, because it's like, how could I teach another human being how to be a human being if I haven't explored those avenues and figured that out for myself? So I'm just greedy, really. I just need a bit of everything.
And I think that's why I admire you, because I feel like when I'm I saw you talking, Figure out, find the opportunity. That's what I've learned about.
I think it's just finding the balance, you know, like, and for me, it's about compartmentalizing. So when I'm at work, I'm at work, and home, you know, doesn't really exist too much. It can't, otherwise I can't focus, you know, and it's like people's lives are at stake, so it's just pretty hardcore. But it's like when I'm at work, like I just focus on getting that academic knowledge and that work experience or life experience, and just really living that moment. And then when I'm home, likewise, I don't bring work home. I'm here, I'm present, I'm in the moment, and I focus all of that time and energy on my son. And it's, you know, turning the phone off, or just whatever it is that he wants to do. If he wants to tell me a 20-minute boring story about his cartoon program, then like, let's do it, Jill, strap in, I'm ready. You know, like, it just love that. Yeah, great. Wow. But it's, you know, it's just being present wherever it is that I am, and it's learning that hard balance between, you know, spreading yourself too thin. And so my solution to that for my situation was just being present in whichever avenue I was, knowing that then that would come back around to the next, you know, little compartment of my life that I have, and being fully present in that one too. And I don't always get it right. I definitely don't always get it right, and it is hard sometimes, you know, like my son will call me from his grandmother's phone, you know, at dinner, and I'm at work in the staff room, or I'm on a gig somewhere. It's a little bit of a gripe, you know, but I know that then when I do see him, I've also fulfilled enough in myself, and it's in a weird way kind of teaching him too that like your life doesn't just stop when you have kids, and but you can't be that chick that then doesn't like look after your kid at all. Like,
It's never that.
It's never that. I mean, it was for some people's mums, but we're gonna do the best we can, you know. Like, I definitely don't have all the answers. I definitely don't always get it right. Like, sometimes I win, sometimes I don't, but like both times I'm trying. So I think it's just putting in all of that effort, and when you need to go and have a cry, just fucking have a cry. Just do it. For 5 minutes though, and then keep it pushing, because we got shit to do.
Then move on.
Then we move on. We've got stuff to do.
What was your favorite performance? Where were you? Do you have a good memory?
Comedy or dancing? Comedy. Okay, yeah. I had this performance that I had, which weirdly, so I got it on video. I had one of my friends video it, and we put it on, well, I say we, I mean I put it on YouTube because I was so stoked about it, right? So if anybody wants to find it, feel free to go check it out. I had this night, and I'd had just enough drinks. You can't drink too much when you're trying to do comedy because you fuck out. But for me, if you know your limits, there's other times where it makes things just a little bit more natural and things flow. So I had this gig, and I was really nervous, and I did all the prep that I was supposed to do, and I really wanted to like give it a good go. And I had a great support team. I had about 3 or 4 of my friends there, and I ignored them the entire time because I was in the bathroom trying to 8 Mile myself, like mum's spaghetti, like getting in the zone. And I did this amazing gig, and the crowd like was just feeling it, and it was just an amateur night and just a bar gig or whatever, you know. But those are my favorite ones. I love the pub gigs the most because for me personally, it just suits my style. The people that go to those gigs aren't necessarily wanting like really crisp sort of comedy. Like, I can be a bit more edgy and a little bit more audacious with it, and people are sort of just like, oh, like they really get on board. So I had this great gig, and there was a girl on before me and a girl on after me, and the girl before me was so funny. Her name's Sarah. She's a great friend of mine now because she's a mum comic as well. At the time I wasn't a mum, but she had this really punchy, edgy comedy that she did, and you know, about being, I think the moment that got me was she had this sort of joke about how like she was a teen mum and people sort of gave her shit about it, and she was like, you know what, whatever, that's fine if anything happens to my kid because I'm young enough, I've got time to make a new one. And it just killed me. Like, it was the funniest thing I think I'd ever heard, and I was so shocked that another female kind of had my style, because I'd never really had a female just come out and be really just like, you know what, I really don't give a fuck, like this is who I am, take it or leave it. And watching her, that camaraderie was amazing for me, and it really egged me on. Like, you know, that I'm like the empath vibe. So if somebody else is being like, you know, going to that place, I'm like, all right, if we're going there, my bag's packed in the corner. Like, let's pack this shit up. Let's go. Boom. Like, into stage left. So I jump on the stage, and I've had a couple of drinks, and just enough that it had a really natural flow. And, you know, all of this new material was coming out of my mouth. Like, I was just as surprised as everybody else. And then afterwards, my friend kept recording, and I was stoked because one of my other comedy mentors, Brendan Lovegrove, was there. And he always egged me on in gigs as well, because he's, you know, the kind of style that I used to watch and be like, that's what I want to do. Somebody who's just so unapologetic and says the most like hectic stuff on stage, but it's so clever and so crafted that like you can't be offended by it because it's really intelligent stuff. And so having him stand up afterwards, he gave this big speech about how it wasn't even a speech, he was speechless. And if you know Brendan, he never shuts the fuck up. So like this was a big moment for me. And then he said to me, he was like, give it up for my daughter on the stage, and everybody just like lost it. And it was so nice to be recognized for my voice. Not necessarily the night that I had or the gig or my material. It was like somebody saw my point of view and the way that I write comedy, the way that I feel and you know, put out comedy, and was just like, I see you and I appreciate you. And that was everything that I needed. And so it's like you can have good big gigs and bad gigs, and they all teach you about comedy and yourself and your voice or whatever. But in that moment, to have somebody whose comedy style I aspired to be like, you know what, that was worthy. Like that was a moment for me that I don't think that like I'll ever forget. And for me, getting off stage after comedy and you've had a great gig, that adrenaline rush is just like, it's just a feeling nobody can ever take away from you. And I think that's one of my favorite things about stage, is that it doesn't matter whether you're dancing or comedy. You know, like dancing, it was the same thing. And I used to get a lot of compliments from people saying, you know, as far as I'm concerned, what you did was art. And the way that you were moving, they were just like, it's like you didn't even care that I was in the room. And I was like, I didn't. But it's don't care that you're here. But it's to have people recognize, you know, what it is that you're putting out there artistically, and just be like, that moved me in some sort of way. Like, isn't that what art's supposed to do? And so for me, like that feeling on even a dancing stage, you know, when you're spinning around and around and around and you're just feeling that music and you don't give a shit, like, you know, the crowd melts into the wall and you can't see anybody but yourself in the pole. And it's just you in the moment, just feeling. That vibe is the same vibe that I get every time I get off stage from a comedy gig, like good or bad, like that. You just can't, you'll never be able to take it. And I think that's something that I love about it the most, is it's such a personal, just joy that's mine, and it's for me. You know, we can put out a lot of stuff that is for everybody else, or people want to take a piece of it, and as women they want to take credit for it and be like, look at, you know, what I let you do. But it's like when it's just you on that stage, like that's power, man, and nobody can touch that. And that's just whew,
priceless.
That's
priceless. Where about because I think I came to one of yours in Great List. What was that place?
That was in Westmere?
Yeah.
Westmere at Garnet Station.
That was
another high, that was a high moment for me, having all of you guys just like fucking sneak up there and surprise me.
I know.
But see, for me, like, I had a great gig because of the same thing. It's the energy. You know, like, for me, I'm just like an energy slut, really. I feed off that stuff. You know, I do. If I'm on a dancing stage, you know, like I had one of my best nights ever was at Showgirls, and it was just the energy. Like the whole place was packed, and it was me on stage, and again, a little bit tiddly. Starting to think maybe I just like alcohol, not the stage, but I was on the stage, and I was doing an amazing show, but the whole entire room was just with me in that moment, and they were just like throwing money everywhere and standing up out of their seats and like cheering and going crazy. And it's just like you're feeding off that, and it's egging you on and making you do an even better performance. Like, ugh, So good. And when your friends are there with comedy, like it makes it easier. It's like stacking the deck. It's kind of like cheating, but not really, because everyone still had a good time.
Love you. Where is your next close? How do people find you? What's your Instagram?
Literally every single social media that I have, basically, is at Brooke West XX. I did it all the same, not for your benefit. It was because I just didn't want to remember anymore. But like, yeah, Snapchat, YouTube, like Facebook, you name it. It's all out there. Yeah. But it's exciting. Like, I was focusing on dancing for so long there and getting quite like a, like a rep for being a dancer. And my favorite thing now, focusing more on comedy and kind of evolving out of that and just outgrowing that and trying to level up, is having people come up to me now and being like, oh, like, you're Brooke West. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like, I'm Brooke. And they're just like, yeah, you're that comedian.
Cool.
And it's like, that's the coolest feeling, rather than them just being like, oh, like, you're the dancer or whatever. And not that I don't, I loved that, but it's been a while since I've just been on for that deal.
Yeah.
My back doesn't have it in it anymore.
That's all good.
I'll probably trying to see you, but like, you don't fucking write, you don't call. Like, I had to stalk you to your job just to get a fucking call back. Give it a FaceTime and head deal. How's that? Imagine just go around and be like, hey, I really think you guys should interview me. Get that host, Michelle. I heard she's a bit of a bitch, but like, I'm sure we'll work it out. And then I just popped up in a job.
Thanks.
Nah, I love you.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh, anytime. I miss you, Oily. Let me watch you hang out. Huh?
I'll leave you on scene.
You'll be back.
Thank you. Righty.
That awkward moment when you say goodbye and now we're just stuck here, like being like,
No, I love those.
Hi, oh my god.
That was really interesting. I know it's a bit of echo, so I'll try and listen now.
I might go on scene this time.
I think it is Michelle. Sorry. On your line. Okay. Hi. Brooke, when's your next show?
My next show is kind of pending at the moment. So I was accepted into the comedy festival this year, which was really exciting for me. It was would have been my first debut show, which has unfortunately been cancelled. We've cancelled the comedy fest, but I'm looking into maybe doing something with the trust themselves, or maybe some fringe festival stuff, which is coming up, I think, in September. Yeah, but otherwise, any bar gigs that you see, like, I'll definitely be jumping into those, because like I said, like, there's nothing better than that kind of pure, just in the moment comedy. So when I do decide to do my show, like, I'll make sure that you guys all know about it.
Yeah, I'd love to go there. I'd love to go. Love the
Tell Michelle to bring you. My show that I'll be doing is called #StripperProblems. Yeah, and it's basically my love note to stripping and all of the girls that are still there, any of the girls that were there with me in the trenches, because those women totally helped to shape who I was. So it'll just be my kind of fly on the wall thing for other people to kind of break down a bit of stigma and just shed a bit of light on the excitement.
You're right. A lot of stigma. Do you feel like you've made lifelong friends doing this?
Oh, for sure. Like, girls like Michelle, I could probably take or leave. No, I'm just kidding.
I love
it. It is. There's something, like, I was one of the girls that, people are like, oh, they don't really have many girlfriends, or girls aren't very nice to me. And the girls that I met stripping were just, there's something so powerful about that camaraderie, like, nobody else knows what it is that you're going through except for those women. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what it was. And I think I've nailed it. And it's that, you get so much kind of attention / harassment / whatever it is at work, that when you leave, you just want to be left alone in the corner to just do whatever it is that you're doing, live your life. And all of those women are the same. So it's kind of like you're all energied out. Like you can't deal with anything else. So you don't have enough energy to be jealous or, you know, competitive with each other in that kind of context. If anything, you're just like, oh, that guy's coming here to talk to you, like, good luck with that. And you make fun of them. So having a group of women where that just wasn't a factor anymore was a really nice thing, but it went deeper than just getting the attention already. You kind of learn that there were so many guys that would not have booked me to give me money in a strip club just because I wasn't blonde or just because I had tattoos. And there was just as many that would book me only because I had tattoos or because of my personality type. And so really getting that front row seat into, it's not about anything like a deficit in you and who you are. Guys just tend to be quite visual, and it can be something as tiny as just, I don't have the right hair color. And so it really removes a lot of that kind of competition with another woman where you're looking at them like, what does she have that I don't have? And makes you realize that guys really aren't that picky, or if they are, it's over something stupid and not about you as a woman. So
maybe that's cool.
Yeah, it kind of reduces any kind of like competition out of that. So
if I was to describe you on the show, I'd say, look, this woman, she's voluptuous, she's passionate, she's tattooed, creative, I bet you're a good dancer, good mover, so you're comfortable in your own skin, and then you have to be doing that job, right?
I think for me, it was just like, you kind of have to get comfortable with you, you know? And I was a ridiculously shy kid, and people don't realize that. Like, I would watch birthday parties from hallways. Like, that's how terrified I was of other kids and what they would think or feel or view me as. And so I worked so hard just to accept myself and to be comfortable with who I am and discover who it was that I am. And I think that's where people get the idea maybe that I'm a little bit confrontational, or they kind of see like an arrogance or something, but it's really not arrogance. Like, I still have insecurities like everybody else, and I still have things I want to work on like everybody else. It's just that I worked so hard that I'm also not going to apologize anymore for being who I am, because I really earned it. And it's not the same as just being like, oh, like I've always just thought that I was pretty or confident, and I feel this kind of way about myself. I really didn't. I worked so hard to get here. And so it's just putting that boundary in for yourself too, and not apologizing anymore for just putting in the work, really.
A lot of work. There's a lot of behind the scenes, and also you have to be quite resilient in job that you're passionate about and you want to get ahead in. So you gotta get, there's nothing worse than getting down when you're down. That's pretty rough. But
I think for me it was, people spend a lot of time trying to make me feel uncomfortable, whether intentionally or not. And I decided to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so being a dancer, that would happen a lot. People would kind of have an inkling and think I'd be ashamed of that, and they'd be like, oh, so what do you do? And I would look people dead in the face and go, I'm a stripper.
Yeah.
And they would get so uncomfortable and shocked, like, oh, and it was like, oh no, you thought you were going to make me feel uncomfortable. And I really don't care. It's you that has the issue and not me. And taking that reclamation of power was something that I really got quite addicted to, was that being of like, you tried to make me feel a certain type of way, and just by being sure of who I am, you weren't able to do that. And I realized that people can't really make you feel any way that you don't allow them to. And once I figured that out, I was on a roll. And I wasn't going to let anybody make me feel that way anymore. And then I started realizing something that people would tell me, like teachers would tell me in high school, you know, like some of the other girls, like they would look up to you, and it was just like, I'm terrified of everything in the world. Like, why would they possibly do that? And I really understood that kind of role model role of people that you don't even know necessarily are looking to see what is going to happen. And for me, I'm like, you know, I've been through enough, like what's a little bit more trauma. So if I have to be the first one to try something so that other women or whoever can see that, you know what, if you are yourself, the sky isn't going to fall, I was like, then I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to take the heat for that. And then that got more empowering as it went along. So I don't know.
That's good. It's a good what you say about trauma, and we're laughing now, but I think trauma can actually just energize, empower, give you solutions, and it just gives you creative ideas.
A lot of creativity. Yeah. I mean, honestly, trauma makes you so funny. Like, it makes you so funny. It really does. And it makes things a little bit more lighthearted. And I've found ways to make light of situations in an array of life, situations. And it just really breaks the tension. And it's kind of nice to be able to provide relief to people in certain times or whatever. Sometimes the only thing you can do is address it and just be like, you know what? This was pretty shit.
Hey, Tom Sainsbury.
Pardon?
Tom Sainsbury?
I didn't know him as well, but I did know of him. I think when I started like Class Comedians back in, oh my gosh, I'm sure my age, like 2009, he was kind of coming up and doing things. And then I watched him in, one of my friends, Hanel, did this amazing show called Sis. And I think Tom was in that. And he just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
I was in love after that. I haven't had the pleasure of like meeting him, but I would definitely fangirl the fuck out.
Yeah, I fangirl him also. So I think he was on the show last night, and I think Benny and I both fell in love with him. He did a skit on his Facebook page. He was sharing around me, and he talked about the gift of Wendy, his calculator, and just the day before I heard about the death of a colleague, friend, and it was awful. When I saw his video, the way he portrays information and talking about the burial of calculator, and I just thought about the guy that passed away with that hilarious. Well, it's just brings people together like food.
And sometimes it's like, especially in a moment of real tragedy, there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can really say that will encompass the level of pain that they're feeling in that moment. And so rather than running away from it or being awkward, like, the last thing people want in a time of trauma usually is that sympathy. And for me, that's something that I really struggled with growing up, was everybody just looked at me with that sympathy look in their eyes, but nobody was prepared to do anything about it as a child. Like, people could look at the situation from the outside and be like, oh, that's so awful. But nobody stood up. Nobody did anything. And, sometimes there's situations in life where there isn't really anything that can be done. And so for me, it was like realizing that you could just say, you know what, this is a bit shit, and address how much it sucks. Or you could say something a little bit funny. And if that gives somebody a 3 to 5 second pocket of peace, just a few seconds to take, just the edge off, then isn't that a good thing? Yeah.
Yes.
Not always. There's been one or two. Usually I'm pretty good. You've got to, I think the best skill of comedy is how to read a room. And there has been one or two times that I may have gotten it wrong and it's gone down like a lead balloon. But most of the time, people kind of appreciate the relief. I had somebody close to me that had lost a child, and a year or two later, lost another child. And, there's just nothing you'd ever be able to say. So I walked into her house in front of a room full of grieving people, and she was sitting down on the floor. And I was like, look, babe, we did this like a year ago. If you wanted to see me again, you could have just called. We didn't have to go through all of this. And she laughed. Her and her mom laughed and thought it was hysterical. And every single other person in the room just gasped on like their cups of tea and was like, I cannot believe you would say something almost so insensitive. But for me, it's like just reminding that person that they're still the same person and they're still human, and you still see them the same way, can sometimes be a lot more caring and loving than just I'm sorry, because that sorry doesn't mean anything.
I was just gonna say, like, comedy, live stand-up,
creates a space where people are a little bit, you know, they're not in their normal environment, and and they hear things and they're going to receive it differently. So I think it really makes a huge impact, and people sort of loosen up a little bit.
My favorite quote is, people used to laugh at comedians and listen to politicians, and now they listen to comedians and they laugh at politicians. And that's what I love about comedy, is that you can give information and a point of view and something really hard hitting to people in a medium that they can take it on board and not feel, you know, as attacked or, you know, defensive about it. And you can really bring light and awareness to situations that need it and things that need to be talked about in a way that people can kind of take it on board. And I think that that's just such an amazing thing.
Yes, absolutely, totally. And because I think comedy and comedians and actors, they know a little bit more about psychology and the way humans behave. They even learn how to walk differently from people who are really just detached from everyday ways of being.
Part of it is because we're creepy, like, people watchers. And part of it is because we're just traumatized as fuck, you know? Like, most comedians, you know, like, you scratch a tiny bit into that surface and you'll see somebody with a background of pain that figured a way to kind of make fun of it. But I think that's just so fucking awesome, to be honest. And being able to work some of your shit out on stage, like, that's a cool feeling as well. But, like, you can really have that, like you say, that safe environment where people can hear you. And you can joke about anything as long as it's funny.
You can.
And I love that kind of juxtaposition and, like, that melding of different things. It's like you can bring up some pain and trauma and stuff, and it's like an academic thing. It's an empathetic thing, because you can really feel the room. Like, if you say something a little off color and the crowd isn't with you, you feel it. And I think that's something that's harder to do about comedy than any other type of stage performance. It's like, you know, if you're singing a song and you're a little bit off or whatever, you know, people can't tell you until you get off stage. Comedy, second by second, minute by minute, like, if you do something that people aren't really that into, you feel it right there in the moment, and you've just got to dust that shit off and keep it pushing and keep going and finish your set and do what it is that you're doing. So it's pretty brutal form of feedback right there in the moment. Like, you don't just get a review after a play or a boo at the end of your song that you've sung and you've done your whole set. Like, you're right there in the moment, and you have to still keep that ball going. But it's awesome. You have those nights of just pure, everybody's in there with you, and you can talk about some really intense stuff, and everybody leaves feeling that little bit like, you know, we've addressed something, because we're all human and we all share a lot of the same experiences. But see, like, my comedy,
I was say, I guess you're talking about reading the room, and that's what DJs do in their music. So comedy is an art form in itself, and you learn how to engage people and push the limits. So that's...
I definitely push the limits. My comedy is not for the faint-hearted. But then again, like I said, people surprise me, you know, like, I've got this joke that I do about, like, dead babies. And it really shows you whether the crowd is kind of with you or not. And sometimes I think, oh, maybe I shouldn't pull that. And then other times I'll pull up to a gig, or like a bartender that might have seen me when I was there previously. I had one bartender, and as soon as I got there, I went to order a drink, not even realizing that she would remember me. And she was like, are you gonna do the dead baby joke tonight? Because, like, I really, like, that's the only one that I want to see. Like, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so excited. But, like, can you just do the dead baby joke? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to need a lot more than that side assist. You better bring us a couple more tequila shots, because, oh my goodness. But it's cool knowing that people can be there with the edgy. But then surprisingly for myself, like, obviously I love edgy, you know, comedians like Brendan Lovegrove or Jim Jeffries, like, people that really push that boundary. Daniel Sloss is another great one. But I also, when I'm just watching comedy, I quite enjoy the super everyday, mundane types of comedy, because I really enjoy seeing a point of view that I would never have considered for a joke. There's a UK comedian, Dylan Moran, does like a 10-minute set on curtains. And it's just, like that observational comedy of everyday things that all of us do right? The curtains, that's what reminded me. These curtains, and it's like, I was like, I would never think to do that, or I would never be able to pull that off, let alone write that kind of material. And so I love seeing a point of view of a comedy style that I would never be able to do, because it's just not part of my voice or who I am. So I really appreciate that, like, you can make a joke about any, if a guy in the UK could do 20 minutes on like a curtain, we can all do plenty of stuff. Like, I just think it's so amazing.
Yeah, it is. And everyday things can become interesting.
That's what I love about it, because I don't notice everyday things. They just go like, what? I'll notice weird stuff. Like if I'm watching an advert, I'll notice there were 2 salts on a table in the background, not a salt and a pepper. But if you asked me what the advert was about, no clue. Drives my friends insane. But I love that other people could, like really observe that, and then it's that relatability. Everybody else can relate to, oh, I do that same thing every single day, and it's something that I didn't even notice that I do. I like that relatability, but I also like my style where I just really can push that envelope and make people think about stuff. And I think being a dancer prior to that helps me with the audience, because people don't really take strippers seriously. So if I feel like they're getting a little bit like, oh, why would she talk about that? They see the blue hair and the tattoos, and they're like, oh, you know what? She probably just had a bad dad. Like, she doesn't know. It's a great shield. It's a great shield.
Yeah. Thank you for your honesty. And we're just going to back up in a minute, because we have a little echo problem. You've been so interesting, and thank you for sharing. I think I've got a lot of
Well, luckily it was interesting.
Yes.
I didn't even have to get my boobs out.
So what do you want to tell us about some of your tattoos before we sign off?
Some of my what, sorry?
Some of your tattoos for me.
Oh.
What is your favorite?
My favorite, I've got an like a Catholic rosary bead anklet that I love, and it's probably because I got that from my grandmother, and I showed it to her, and she wasn't too fazed actually by it, which was surprising. And I got another tattoo for my grandfather, and he was absolutely mortified, but that's fine. But I love that my nan got to see the tattoo that I got for her before she passed away. And all my other tattoos are really just were part of me exploring who I am, and I'm not good at talking about like how I feel, so I just like emotional pain, so I just get the physical pain instead. And for me, I'm like, job done, it's efficient. So I have a sleeve on my arm, which is about my balance of life. So I have like above the ground and underneath the water. So I have, I don't know if you can see.
Yeah,
I've got some mermaids and stuff, like some dark angels and skulls. And then I have this gigantic piece down my side, which is bright and colorful and roses and things, because I loved the idea of big tattoos on women. But I didn't like that when a lot of women that I had seen had done it, they'd gone kind of down the masculine route rather than bringing out the femininity in themselves. So I spent a lot of time with my tattooist kind of hand drawing and hand picking flowers that I liked out of just gardening books in obscure places. And then when we finally got it right after drawing it on and taking it off like 5 times, he's like, get in the chair. I don't give a shit if we're here for the next 3 days. Like, you were not leaving until it's on you, because I'm never drawing it again. But.
And would you recommend a local tattooist in particular?
I think you can't. Like, it depends on what it is that you're looking for. Tattooing is its art form in itself. So if you like photorealism, like what I have on this sleeve, you'd go to certain artists like maybe Matt Jordan and Ship Shape Tattoo and things like that. They do amazing stuff. If you wanted like a color artist, you'd go somewhere else. If you wanted great straight lines and dots and things like this, you can't just pick one. People are like, who would you recommend? And I'm like, it depends on what it is that you're looking for. You've got to find the right fit. I just think art is about collaboration. So I chose artists where they had a very defined style, and I gave them my ideas and gave them a bit of creativity to put their interpretation on what I wanted. and they'll come up with different things that you wouldn't have considered, just like comedy, a different point of view. So my tattoos I love because I had a baseline, but I gave them the freedom as an artist to just give me what it is that it meant for them when they saw that image. And obviously I'm not a tattooer, so they did way better than me.
Yeah, I think you're a seasoned tattoo receiver, so you know way more about it than me. But there's just some tattoos that are just very admirable, the artistic nature and the thought that's gone behind, going through that process. Yeah. Big
I think it's
story.
just Instagram. Go on Instagram, follow everybody's work, see what it is that they do and what they're about. And when you know, like, you'll just know. You'll know the person you resonate with and work with them and let them know that you want them to put their own spin on it, because they'll care more if they get a bit of freedom. Nobody wants to just copy and paste what you want. If you give an artist and a designer, like a bit of artistic license, you're going to get a much better piece because they're invested in it. They've put their vibe on it, and I think that's the secret.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you for being here tonight. Anything else you can we can share?
Yeah, Michelle, give me a call.
Yeah. We're going to call you live.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you, people, for tuning in this Friday night, 20th of May. Gosh, that was just so interesting, and it's just really uplifting for me, hanging out with interesting people almost daily. I'm spoiled. Love New Zealand. I love who I'm meeting throughout this country, and back in Auckland next week. But right now, I'm broadcasting from Kingston, near Queenstown. And we've got more interesting people coming up on the show to talk about mental health, music, art, business, entrepreneurship, all those things that make life roll on so well. Lots of creatives out there, and we just like you to visit us at Talkback NZ if you want to listen to the audio. If you want to buy us a coffee, buyusacoffee.com/talkbacknz. Yeah, no pressure, but if you want to support the show, that'd be really cool. I'll just going to say a quick goodbye to our beautiful guest, Brooke West. She's backstage, and all the best. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Bye.